If you can translate this document by tomorrow morning, my monthly salary is yours." The words echoed across the walnut-paneled room, spoken by Marcus Ellington, a renowned CEO in the tech industry, as he entertained 3 senior executives after signing a deal worth nearly $3 billion. The room burst into laughter, not because the remark was witty, but because it was aimed at the maid standing silently by the door with a tray of wine. Amara Ruiz. A woman with a still posture and unreadable gaze bowed slightly and accepted the file her employer had handed her. On the cover were dense Chinese characters, along with technical diagrams in the margins, a partnership contract so complex that even the company's legal team was struggling with it. Even professional translators are stumped by this jargon. Marcus chuckled, wiping a tear of amusement. "But if you can pull it off, $400,000 is yours. Tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock. No one objected. To them, it was just post-dinner entertainment, a game played at the expense of the help. Amara didn't respond. She simply nodded. After 20 years in this household, she had mastered the art of existing like air, quiet, diligent, invisible. "Anything else you need, Mr. Ellington?" she asked calmly before turning to leave. "No. Just make sure the bar is stocked. We'll be celebrating late." The heavy oak door closed behind her. Inside, laughter continued. Outside. Silence from a woman about to make this entire house look at her differently. The soft soles of Amara's shoes glided over the Persian carpet, thick enough to muffle even the heaviest footsteps. She walked past a hallway lined with oil paintings, each worth more than her annual salary, without looking back. In the cold gallery-like kitchen, she placed the document on the marble counter. Her eyes scanned the dense lines of Chinese characters like a code from a new era. This was a woman who once poured wine for the elite, cleaned up after million-dollar parties, and vanished when the lights dimmed. But tonight she reached into her apron pocket, took out her phone, silently photographed the document, and sent a single message. "It's me. I need your help. This is important." 40 minutes later, after checking the bar and cleaning the kitchen spotless, Amara drove her aging Toyota through quiet suburban streets where lights still glowed in small windows. This wasn't a neighborhood of early bedtimes. This was where people like her still worked long after midnight. Her one-bedroom apartment came into view, simple, clean, and tidy like herself. She hung up her uniform, brewed a cup of tea, and opened her laptop. With calm professionalism, she attached the photo and composed an email. "Professor Bennett, I'm sorry for reaching out this late, but I have an urgent matter that requires your expertise. I'd truly appreciate your help. Sent." She stood, walked to a small bookshelf, and pulled out a worn leather notebook. Inside were handwritten notes in multiple languages, orderly, precise, like fragments of a memory that had never fully slept. Perhaps it was time. At 2:17 a.m., the old wooden desk vibrated. A message lit up the screen. "This document is fascinating." Professor Bennett, the only person still in contact with Amara since she vanished from academia, had replied. "It's a joint venture agreement for quantum hardware. The terminology is highly specialized. Need help with anything in particular? Happy to assist." Amara smiled, her eyes narrowing behind thin-rimmed glasses. For 10 years, she'd lived under the title of maid, letting go of everything she once was, even the title her students had once spoken with pride, Dr. Amara Ruiz, expert in applied linguistics, specializing in technical translation for international contracts. "Thank you, Professor. I'll reach out if I hit any tricky sections. I'll handle the rest." She sat down, pen in hand, eyes moving over each complex character, her long dormant mind kicked into motion like a machine oiled after years of stillness. This wasn't just a contract. It was a trap layered with deceptive language crafted in elite technical vocabulary. One clause granted the foreign partner full unrestricted access to the company's internal security infrastructure, something Marcus's legal team had clearly missed. Amara carefully annotated each section, peeling back the language like layers of buried stone. By sunrise, she had completed a meticulous translation along with a supplementary document flagging all potential security breaches and intellectual property risks. She printed both, tucked them into her worn canvas bag, turned off the light, and slept for an hour and a half. At precisely 6:45 a.m., she returned to the Ellington estate as if she had never left. Breakfast at the Ellington estate unfolded as usual, quiet, complete with no one bothering to ask questions. Amara set the table, poured coffee, folded napkins. No one in that grand home knew that the woman washing dishes had stayed up all night saving them from a billion-dollar disaster. Around 11 a.m., Marcus and his guests wandered into the dining room groggy, yet still draped in the arrogance of those who regularly closed billion-dollar deals. The rich scent of fresh coffee sharpened their senses. Amara Marcus said teasingly, "Remember that joke from last night? Just leave the document on the table when you get a chance. I wouldn't want to take you away from your chores." Amara nodded and reached into her bag. She didn't return the document like a servant returning a borrowed item. Instead, she walked directly to the table where 4 powerful people paused, staring at her as if they were seeing her for the first time. "Mr. Ellington," she said calmly, "I've completed the translation as requested." Marcus froze coffee cup midair. "I'm sorry. What the translation?" Along with detailed annotations identifying clauses that could severely impact your company's security and intellectual property rights. I've marked them clearly. She placed the papers on the glass table. No more jokes, no more laughter, only the sound of fingers frantically flipping pages and Marcus's eyes shifting from disbelief to dawning horror. Amara didn't say another word. The words she had written the night before were now speaking for her. Marcus Ellington leaned forward, scanning each line carefully. There was no trace of amusement left on his face. On the 3rd page, Amara gently pointed. "This clause grants the Chinese partner unrestricted access to your internal security infrastructure. And this one transfers ownership of all jointly developed technology to their subsidiary in Shanghai." The room went utterly silent. Even Diane, the sharp-minded CFO, gasped, grabbing the document from Marcus's hands. "She's right," Diane murmured. "These clauses could hand over our entire product line." "How did our legal team miss this?" Marcus looked up, his voice suddenly hoarse. "Where did you learn all this?" Amara didn't flinch. She stood tall, hands folded in front of her uniform. Her gaze was no longer that of a maid, but of someone who once stood behind a lectern. "I was a doctor of linguistics, specialized in international commercial contracts, until the political situation in my country forced me to leave." There was a long pause. Marcus almost whispered, "How much do we pay you?" $52,000 a year, sir, plus health insurance." He leaned back in his chair, hand running through graying hair. He looked at her, truly looked as though for the first time seeing the human behind the apron. "You've tutored my children, organized the library, managed the house, took care of my wife in her final days." His voice cracked. "Why? Why would you help me after all this?" Amara didn't smile. She didn't accuse. She simply replied softly, "I work here. What happens to this company affects all of us." Marcus fell silent. In front of him was no longer the help, but a person with intellect, history, and loyalty. he had never been wise enough to recognize. Marcus Ellington shot to his feet, not out of anger, but because he no longer knew how to face himself. His chair toppled behind him. Everyone out, he said, his voice trembling yet controlled. The three executives gathered their things. Diane held the translation with the care of someone carrying a lifeline. Now it was just the two of them in that vast room. One man who once had everything but never truly saw, and one woman who had been invisible until she stopped being convenient. Marcus paced slowly before stopping in front of Amara. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Amara remained composed. "You never asked." A simple truth. Stark. Unavoidable. He sank into the chair again, silent for a long moment, then spoke. "I was wrong. Not just for underestimating you, but for becoming the very kind of man I swore I never would, the kind who thinks status gives him the right to demean others." He opened a drawer and pulled out his checkbook. Quietly, he wrote a figure. 400,000. As promised last night. But this time, it's no joke. Amara looked at the check. She knew exactly what it could mean: a nephew's medical school, a sister's recovery, her own long-delayed security. But she didn't reach for it yet. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "I want to offer you a position in our international legal division, a role worthy of your expertise, proper compensation, and no one gets to overlook you again." Amara considered. She didn't respond right away. After a quiet pause, she spoke. "If I accept, there would have to be a few conditions. Name them." "Anonymity. I'd work as an independent consultant, flexible hours, and," she held his gaze firmly, "no more jokes at the expense of your staff, of anyone, ever." Marcus swallowed hard, then nodded. "You have my word, and I understand. It will take time for you to believe that." Amara folded the check and slipped it into the pocket of her simple blouse. Not like someone who had won, but like someone who had just redrawn the rules. "Now then, I should go set lunch." 3 months later. The top floor of Ellington Tower, where million-dollar decisions were made, had a new office. Frosted glass, soft lighting, a sleek desk covered in bilingual documents, a whiteboard crowded with precise annotations, and at the center sat a woman calmly reviewing a joint venture agreement with a Brazilian tech firm. Amara Ruiz, no longer the quiet maid in the corner of the kitchen. No longer the help forgotten at every party. She had just identified 3 loopholes in a contract, ones the senior legal team had missed entirely. A soft knock at the door. Marcus entered holding 2 coffee cups. "Latte." "Just how you like it," he said, placing one on her desk. "The Singapore deal's moving forward thanks to your notes. The board's impressed?" Amara nodded slightly. Her smile was subtle, not proud, just steady. The kind of smile worn by someone who knows exactly where they stand. Marcus pulled a small box from his jacket and set it beside her laptop. "I have something for you. Open it whenever you feel ready." When he left, Amara lifted the lid. Inside was a beautifully engraved nameplate, cast in blackened brass, Dr. Amara Ruiz, Director of International Linguistics and Cultural Affairs. Tucked underneath was a handwritten note, "Your choice whether to use this. Either way, you are seen now." Amara ran her fingers over the letters. 20 years of being veiled in silence, humility, and judgment, now honored not with applause or medals, but with the right to choose how she is remembered. She gently closed the nameplate and placed it in her drawer. Not because she was rejecting it, but because she knew that one day when she was ready, the door bearing her true name would open, and this time she'd walk through it on her own terms.